The wind that Sunday night rolled through Greenwood Springs like a restless traveler. Temperatures had dipped to a crisp 43 degrees, and the rain left the asphalt slick as black glass. At 9:46 p.m., sharp the bell above the door at Pinecrest Market gave a thin, tired jingle, one that seemed to echo longer in an empty store. The door swung open with a cold gust stirring the faded flag in the corner display and carrying in the scent of rain-drenched pavement. Sam Elliott Granger, age 79, stepped inside with slow deliberation. His right leg dragged slightly behind him, an old injury part-time. His frame was thin but upright, encased in a faded tan field jacket, a frayed USAF rescue wing patch stitched above the left pocket. His cap, olive canvas, weathered and sun-bleached, read simply, 308th Rescue Squadron. No one had asked what it meant. No one had cared to. Behind the counter, Marcy Dugan, store manager of 15 years, looked up briefly, then resumed her receipts. Her sigh, audible across the near-empty market, said more than words. "He's back," she murmured under her breath. Ethan Ross, a college sophomore and part-time cashier, heard but said nothing. His fingers hovered above the touchscreen, caught between duty and discomfort. Sam Granger offered him a small, polite nod. The gesture went mostly unanswered. Toward the back, huddled near the drink cooler, sat the usual trio: Tanner Briggs, Kyle Mason, and Drew Cutler. 20-something regulars who wore privilege like cologne, branded hoodies, Nike Air Maxes, and the easy confidence of boys who had never been tested. Tanner leaned back with a smirk as Sam's silhouette moved past the shelves. "Look alive, boys. Here comes Captain Crawl for his ration run," Tanner said, voice deliberately loud. Kyle laughed loud enough to draw looks. Drew elbowed him, adding, "Bet he's got a bunker of MREs at home." Sam heard them, he always did, but his expression remained unchanged. Step by steady step, he moved to the dairy case. The cold seeped through the glass, fogging slightly where his breath touched it. His fingers, calloused and deliberate, selected a quart of milk. 2 aisles down, he retrieved exactly 2 granola bars, the same brand, the same count as every week. Never more, never less. At the counter, Sam placed the items carefully. Then came the coin pouch, an old leather one with faint stitching. He counted out the change, each coin placed purposefully upon the glass. Marcy tapped her nails impatiently. "We close at 10, she said, though the posted hours clearly read midnight. Sam simply replied, "Won't take long." Behind him, the boys upped their performance. Kyle began a mocking cadence. 10 hut eyes forward. "Private." His voice rang out with exaggerated bravado. Ethan's jaw tensed his fingers, pausing on the register. Still he remained silent, though his shame began to knot in his chest. The transaction complete, Ethan finally met Sam's eyes. "Have a good night, Mr. Granger," he said softly, the first time anyone had called him by name. Sam offered the faintest nod, tucked the paper bag under his arm, and turned to go. Tanner wasn't done. "Hey, Captain, don't forget your Purple Heart hero." The bell jingled again as the door opened, a draft rushing through. Sam Granger stepped out into the lingering mist. His gait remained slow, unbroken. He didn't glance back. He never did. The next morning, a light wind scattered fallen leaves across Main Street. The rain had passed, leaving behind puddles like scattered mirrors. At 7:04 a.m., Sam entered Pinecrest Market once more, not to shop this time, but to refill his Greenwood Transit card at the old kiosk by the window. Tanner spotted him first. "Well, look who's back, Sergeant Shuffle himself," he jeered, voice thick with false bravado. Kyle snorted. "Careful, Tanner, don't say Sergeant too loud. He might salute the cereal aisle." Drew, slower to join in, this time added weakly, "Probably polishes his boots before bed." Sam ignored them. His movements, though deliberate, were not slow from frailty, but from a lifetime's hard-earned control. Each step was measured because speed no longer mattered to him. Behind the counter, Ethan burned with quiet frustration. His fingers curled against the edge of the register. He opened his mouth to speak and closed it again. His silence shamed him more than the boy's cruelty. Marcy stepped out from the back with a clipboard, saw the unfolding scene, and chose to walk past without a word. Sam finished refilling his card and turned toward the exit. "Hey, Captain," Tanner called. "Same jacket every day. VA, cut your fashion stipend." The boys laughed, the sound bouncing hollowly off tile and glass. Sam paused briefly at the door. Ethan thought, maybe he'll finally say something. But Sam only turned his head just once. His gaze swept the room, not with anger, not with sadness, but with a profound stillness that passed through the space like fog through trees. Then he walked out. Tanner exhaled. "Man, that guy's weird. Bet he talks to ghosts." Kyle chuckled, but less certainly this time. Ethan's voice finally broke through the fog. Quiet but unwavering. "He's got more dignity in that limp than you three have in your whole bodies." The laughter died instantly. Tanner's grin twitched. "What's your problem?" Ethan looked straight at them. "You don't know what it means to stand in front of something dangerous and not run." "He does. And he does it every time he walks in here and takes your garbage without a word." Marcy intervened, clipboard in hand. "Ethan, don't escalate." But Sam was already gone, and for the first time their jokes didn't echo quite so loud. They hung there awkward thin, and in that silence a small crack began to spread. The rain returned to Greenwood Springs by midweek, a fine mist that clung to windows and traced delicate lines down weathered brick. The streets gleamed beneath dull streetlights, their reflections broken by passing tires. Inside Pinecrest Market, the hours crawled toward closing. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, casting an artificial hush over the aisles. Ethan Ross stood behind the counter, scanning a stack of weekly coupons, though his eyes flicked constantly toward the door. He hadn't stopped thinking about what he'd said Sunday night. It had come out unbidden, more truth than courage, but now it weighed on him like an unpaid debt. Near the drink cooler, Tanner, Kyle, and Drew occupied their usual perch. Tonight they seemed restless, their bravado thinner somehow. Tanner flipped a bottle cap between his fingers. Kyle scrolled through social media absently. Drew chewed gum with the mechanical focus of someone avoiding thought. At 7:03 p.m., the door jingle rang out. Sam Granger stepped inside, the same worn jacket, the same steady gait. His right leg dragged faintly, a rhythm now familiar. Ethan straightened involuntarily. The boys looked up in unison. "Well," Tanner said, voice a notch too loud. "Look who survived another week." "Must have patched that leg with duct tape." Kyle chuckled, though it sounded forced. "Careful," he added, "or he'll start barking orders again." Drew hesitated, fingers drumming on the cooler door. He glanced at Sam, then away. Sam said nothing. His eyes moved past them, calm and detached. Without a glance, he made his way to the transit card kiosk near the window. His fingers moved slowly, methodically, feeding bills into the machine. Behind the counter, Ethan's hands curled into fists beneath the register. The urge to speak burned in his throat, but Marcy had made her stance clear. Don't escalate. Marcy herself appeared from the stockroom, clipboard tucked beneath one arm. She surveyed the scene with practiced indifference. Tanner caught her eye and smirked. "Just kids joking," her expression seemed to say. "No need to intervene. No need to risk a complaint." Ethan swallowed his frustration. He hated the silence in himself more than the noise from the boys. At the kiosk, Sam finished his transaction. With a slow, practiced movement, he tucked the card into the inner pocket of his jacket. As he turned to leave, Tanner called out again. "Hey, Captain Gramps, same jacket, same story. You on a budget freeze?" Kyle laughed louder this time, pushing the discomfort aside. "Maybe he's waiting on his pension to upgrade." The store echoed with their forced amusement. Even Marcy half smiled, shifting her clipboard. Ethan couldn't stay silent anymore. His voice emerged low but firm enough to cut the space between them. "You think that's funny?" The laughter faltered. Tanner raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me." Ethan's gaze didn't waver. That man has more dignity in that limp than either of you have in your whole lives. The words hung there heavier than anyone expected. Kyle forced a grin. Lighten up, Ross. We're just messing around. Ethan's jaw tightened. No, you're not. You don't know what it means to stand in front of danger and not run. He does. And he does it every time he walks in here and takes your garbage without saying a word. The store fell silent. Even the hum of the refrigerator seemed to fade. Marcy stepped forward, voice cautious. Ethan, let's not make a scene. But the scene had already shifted. Sam paused at the door, his back straight. For a heartbeat, it seemed he might turn, might speak. But instead he glanced back just once, that same still gaze that had unsettled them days before. No anger, no triumph. Just an unwavering calm that made the boys look smaller somehow. Then he left. The door closed with a muted jingle. The rain whispered against the glass. Tanner exhaled, trying to reclaim his swagger. Man, that guy's creepy. Probably talks to himself. Kyle gave a weak chuckle. Drew said nothing. His gaze remained fixed on the floor. Ethan released a slow breath, heart pounding. Marcy looked at him sharply but said no more. For the first time, the boys' laughter didn't resume. It hung there, awkward, brittle. Outside, the rain deepened. Inside, something had shifted a crack in the pattern they had all grown too comfortable repeating. In the days that followed, the shift lingered. Tanner joked less. Kyle scrolled more. Drew kept glancing toward the door during shifts as if expecting or dreading Sam's return. Ethan noticed it all but held his silence. He wasn't proud of the moment, only relieved that the truth had finally been spoken aloud. And beneath the hum of Pinecrest Market, a new current of unease settled, one that no amount of bravado could quite wash away. The rain returned on Thursday night, more persistent this time. Heavy drops beat against the glass storefront of Pinecrest Market, blurring the neon sign outside. The forecast had warned of thunderstorms, but few listened. In Greenwood Springs, folks knew that spring storms often blew through quickly, leaving streets slick and empty. By 9:17 p.m., business had slowed to a crawl. The store's usual hum, a blend of humming coolers and overhead lights, seemed louder than the footsteps that passed the door that night. Sam Granger sat alone by the window near the transit kiosk, a small black coffee cooling untouched before him. He rarely lingered inside, but tonight his legs ached with a familiar heaviness, a reminder of a time long past. Ethan Ross had offered the coffee without words. Sam had accepted with a nod, nothing more. Behind the counter, Marcy balanced the week's invoices. Near the drink cooler, the familiar trio, Tanner, Kyle, and Drew, occupied their usual corner. Their voices were low but constant. Tanner flicked a quarter into the air, catching it absently. Kyle scrolled his phone. Drew leaned against the cooler, restless. Across the room, Ethan watched quietly. He'd noticed how the boys' laughter had grown thinner in recent days, but the pattern remained. Familiarity often breeds bravado. Sam seemed unaware, or perhaps unwilling, to waste thought on them. His gaze remained on the rain-slicked street beyond the glass. At 9:28 p.m., the door opened, but this time the bell did not jingle. It hung silent on its bracket, as though stilled by some unseen hand. The man who entered moved with purpose. He was tall, broad across the shoulders, his long black hoodie soaked through from the storm. Water dripped steadily onto the tile. His face was hidden beneath a black ski mask, leaving only dark eyes exposed. In his right pocket, one hand rested ominously. For a moment, no one moved. Then the voice came low, deliberate, as cold as the rain outside. Everyone down. The gun appeared with quiet certainty, drawn from the coat like a letter from an envelope. No flourish, no theatrics, just cold intent. Kyle's phone slipped from his grasp, clattering on the floor. Drew's breath caught. Tanner froze mid-motion, quarter still in hand. Behind the counter, Marcy's fingers trembled above the scanner. Ethan's pulse hammered in his throat. Empty the register. Now! The man's tone remained even though steel threaded through it. Marcy's mouth opened, but no sound came. Ethan moved instinctively toward the panic button beneath the counter. Do it, the gunman warned, and someone dies. The room seemed to hold its breath. The buzz of the coolers faded into nothing, and then a soft sound, wood tapping tile, slow, deliberate. Sam Granger stood, no rush, no panic. He rose like a question none of them had thought to ask. His right hand gripped the worn walking stick faintly engraved with the numbers 308th Rescue 1973. Sit down, old man, the gunman growled. Sam didn't. He took a step forward, then another. Each movement measured, not hesitant, but purposeful. 5 steps in all. The gun swiveled toward him. I said down. Sam raised his left hand open and empty. His voice was steady, softer than the rain. You don't want to do this. Time seemed to thin. Ethan felt sweat bead cold beneath his shirt. Marcy gasped softly behind the counter. For the briefest moment, the gunman's hand wavered. And in that moment, Sam moved. With a precise twist of his wrist, the cane swept upward in a clean arc. It struck the gun sharply, knocking it sideways. A deafening crack echoed through the store. A single shot tore into a rack of Hostess cakes, sending cream-filled wrappers flying. Sam lunged. The cane swung again, striking the gunman's forearm with bone-jarring force. The weapon clattered to the floor. In the space of 2 heartbeats, the man fell hard. Sam stood over him, breathing steady. His stance, balanced, controlled, betrayed no fear, no hesitation, only calm. Behind the cooler, the boys crouched wide-eyed and silent. Their bravado had vanished like smoke in a gale. Ethan, stunned, finally found his voice. Should I call the cops? Without turning, Sam replied. Already on their way. Press the button now. Ethan obeyed, hands shaking as he activated the alarm. Sam pressed the tip of the cane against the back of the fallen man's neck, firm and unyielding. Someone grabbed something to tie him. The room remained frozen. Then, to everyone's surprise, it was Kyle who scrambled first. He grabbed a pack of zip ties hanging by the register, fumbling them toward Sam. With practiced precision, Sam knelt, knees cracking faintly, and bound the man's wrists. Every movement spoke of experience etched deep by time and necessity. Tanner whispered hoarsely. How did he? Marcy turned to Ethan, her voice barely audible. Where? Where did he learn? That Ethan swallowed. His voice carried more than awe. It carried regret. He's Air Force Rescue, technical sergeant, served 25 years, Vietnam, Grenada, Desert Storm, saved more lives than most doctors ever will. Tanner flinched, color draining from his face. No one ever told us that. You never asked. Sam secured the final knot, then leaned back against the wall. His breath remained even. His eyes closed, not in exhaustion, but in memory. Outside, faint sirens began to wail, drawing nearer. Drew stepped forward, voice dry and thin. I thought he was just some old guy. Sam opened his eyes, meeting the boy's gaze. I am, he said simply. Moments later, the door burst open. Blue and red lights sliced through the glass as 2 officers entered, weapons drawn. Down, Ethan raised his hands quickly. It's him, the old man. He stopped it. An officer approached Sam. Sir, are you hurt? Sam shook his head. I'm fine. The other officer secured the groaning attacker, reading him his rights. Sam didn't so much as glance toward him. Marcy lowered her clipboard for once without words. Tanner, Kyle, and Drew stood rooted, no longer boys playing at courage. Because when real danger had come, they had frozen. And the man they had mocked rose without fear, without falter, and saved every soul in that store. By dawn, word had spread through Greenwood Springs like fire beneath dry leaves. The headline on WGRN local news read, 79-year-old veteran disarms armed robber in late-night market standoff. Grainy security footage played on a loop across TV screens and mobile feeds, no audio, just the silent image of Sam Granger stepping forward, a walking stick in his hand, as others crouched behind shelves. By Sunday morning, Pinecrest Market felt changed. The floor gleamed as if scrubbed twice over. The front windows, fogged by storm just days before, now shone clear. Ethan Ross arrived early, setting fresh coffee on the back counter. The small wooden bench by the window, usually vacant, had been dusted and prepared. It was waiting. At 9:46 p.m., the door jingle rang out on time. Sam entered, jacket and cap unchanged. His gait was steady, deliberate, no different from before. But tonight, no one looked away. Behind the counter, Marcy stood with an unreadable expression, clipboard forgotten. Ethan straightened instinctively, heart thudding. Near the cooler, Tanner, Kyle, and Drew were already seated, unusually still. In Tanner's lap rested a manila folder, his fingers nervously creasing its edges. Sam nodded once to Ethan, then moved toward his usual spot. But before he could sit, Tanner rose abruptly. "Mr. Granger," his voice wavered. Can I give you something?" Sam paused. Tanner stepped forward, extending the folder with both hands. Inside were printed pages, a faded military newsletter from 1985, an article about a Grenada rescue mission, and a scanned photo, a younger man in uniform kneeling beside the wreckage of a helicopter, arms bloodied, gaze steady. The caption read, "T. Yerjugend S.E. Granger, securing pilot during Operation Urgent Fury. We had to search by your unit number," Kyle added quietly. "You're not in any Hall of Fame or anything." Sam's eyes moved slowly across the pages, expression unreadable. "I don't keep records," he said softly. "Other people need them more than I do." Drew swallowed hard. Why didn't you ever tell anyone who you were?" Sam folded the folder, gently handing it back. "Because it doesn't matter if no one's willing to listen." He looked around the room, the clean counters, the humming coolers, the faces of 3 boys who had once mocked him. "You listened when it got scary. That's easy. The real test is whether you'll listen when it's quiet." Marcy emerged from the office, then carrying a small wooden plaque, freshly engraved. She offered it with no fanfare, only quiet respect. It read, "For Samuel Granger, showing Greenwood Springs what courage looks like." Sam regarded it for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "Don't hang that for me," he said. "Hang it so the next quiet person who walks through that door doesn't have to prove they belong." Ethan nodded, already moving toward the wall near the coffee machine. As Sam turned to sit, Tanner spoke again. Voice low, words weighted. "Thank you for not freezing." Sam placed his cane by the window, settled into the bench, and took a sip of the coffee Ethan had brought. "Next time you won't either," he replied simply. "Don't worry." The following Sunday arrived cool and bright, the streets washed clean by the week's rain. At 9:46 p.m., Pinecrest Market's door chimed once more. Sam entered, as always, jacket, worn, step deliberate. But tonight no one pretended not to see. At the counter, Ethan waited, register ready. Marcy stood nearby, not hiding behind her clipboard. At the cooler, Tanner, Kyle, and Drew sat straighter. Sam moved through the aisles, a quart of milk, 2 granola bars, nothing more. The routine was unchanged, but the air was not. Ethan scanned the items with care, placed them in a paper bag with deliberate respect. When Sam offered exact change, Ethan did not rush. He waited until each coin was counted, because now it mattered. The receipt printed. But instead of handing it over directly, Ethan slipped it gently into the paper bag, then paused. From beneath the counter, he produced a small, folded slip of paper and tucked it beneath the receipt. Sam noticed. Of course he did. But he asked no questions. "See you next Sunday," Ethan said. Sam replied, "Voice, even if I'm still upright." That earned a quiet smile from the room. As he passed the boys, Tanner offered a respectful nod. Kyle mirrored it. Drew stood briefly, hands at his sides. Sam paused at the door, looked back once, not for drama, just to ensure they saw him. Then he stepped into the cool night. The bell jingled softly behind him. At the counter, Marcy glanced at Ethan. What did you put in the bag? Ethan shrugged. Nothing much. A Szechuan menu. At home in his small kitchen with its faded linoleum floor, Sam unpacked the bagged milk to the fridge, granola bars to the cupboard. Then he found the folded slip of paper. Written in blue ink, a little crooked, clearly rushed, "You were never invisible. I just wasn't ready to see." Sam stared at the note for a long moment. Then, with a care that matched none of his usual routines, he folded it slowly and tucked it behind a framed photo. 5 young men in fatigues grinning beside a battered helicopter. No words, no tears, just silence and a very small smile.